be on the happening of some say event, or sometimes unforeseen circumstances may happen to make that valid contract void. So a valid contract would become void. There are four conditions under which a valid contract may become void. First is a voidable contract. Like, for example, as I said earlier, that a valid contract would remain valid as long as the the affected party does not exercise the option. So in case the affected party at whose option the valid contract becomes void, it would be called voidable contract, and under such conditions a valid contract would become void. So under the first condition, a valid contract becomes void if it's voidable contract. That means if one of the parties to the contract exercises the option to declare the contract terminated. Second condition is supervening impossibility. I had given this example yesterday also, that suppose there's one party who wants to sell the his car, and goes to the office of another party, and they are sitting on the first floor and the car is parked down the street, and they enter into a contract, they sign a contract of buying and selling that particular car, but unaware of the fact that downstairs some miscreants, they put that car on fire. So the car is destroyed, but none of the two parties, they are aware of this fact that something has happened to that car. So at the time of signing that contract was valid, but now it's impossible for the seller to deliver that car to the buyer. So there is supervening impossibility of completing the obligation on the part of the seller. So seller won't be able to sell that car now. So this valid contract, which was signed between the two parties who were unaware of the fact that that object of the contract was destroyed by someone, that valid contract becomes void as soon as either of the two parties, they discover that that object had been destroyed by someone. So at the beginning of the contract it was valid, but later on it became void. Third situation may be subsequent illegality. Now this subsequent illegality may occur as a result of government action. Government can come up with any law that may declare the object of that particular contract as illegal to be traded. For example, if two parties, they enter into a contract for the sale of, say, timber, and overnight the government comes up with a rule that the sale and the buying and selling of timber by private parties would be illegal. So the contract their promise, it may happen that the buyer may say may have paid the price of the timber. So in any case, even if one of the parties, they have performed or has performed the promise or made the performance, the other party which was to deliver the timber had not delivered the timber. So in that case, the performance remains on the part of the other party. So the contract is not discharged, and um, uh, in the midnight, for example, if the law comes that the sale of timber by private parties would become illegal at midnight, so both the parties, they are their obligation, they are discharged from that contract, because now it won't be possible for the seller to deliver the timber. So the seller would have to return the price that has been paid by the buyer, and naturally it's because that of the illegality of the contract. Although at the time of the contract, when it was signed, it was valid, but now it has become void. So now both the parties, they are free of their obligations under that contract, as the contract has become void because of the illegality. Likewise, suppose if a particular party has signed an agreement with a neighboring country, a business person of a neighboring country, say the goods or the export of certain goods, and suppose because trading with the it's legal, but um, it happens that there's a war that starts between the two countries. So dealing or trading with enemy country, or the business persons of the enemy country, it is prohibited. One can deal with the business persons or of another country at which the country is at war. So during the period of war, that particular contract that had been entered, which was valid when the contract was signed, it will become void. And sometimes it happens that if the relations become normal between the two countries, so during the period of war, sometimes the all the contracts, they become suspended, they can be revived. But for the time being, since there's uncertainty as to the extent of time relating to how much time it will take for the two countries to normalize their relations, um, all the contracts, they would become void. So subsequent illegality of the contracts or the object matter, or sometimes the terms of conditions of the contract, or because of the government order relating to dealing with alien enemies, so that becomes void. This is the third condition. The fourth condition is in case of contingent contracts. Although we have a separate topic on contingent contracts, I'll just briefly explain what is this contingent contract. When the contract is dependent on the happening or non-happening of some uncertain future event. Like, for example, if there's a buyer and a seller in the country, and they make a contract for the sale of certain goods that are to be imported from some other country. So the seller would then make a condition under the offer that if everything goes on well, that means if the goods reach the port safely, then only he will be able to Mukul Sharma, please mute your mic. Mukul Sharma, please mute your mic. So if everything goes on well, that means if the ship that is carrying the goods reaches the port safely, then he would be able to deliver the goods to the through the buyer. Now suppose some eventuality happens. For example, if the ship sinks, for example, then the seller would not be able to deliver the goods. So this valid contract would become void on the happening of that uncertain future event. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Because the safe journey of or the reaching of the ship was a precondition to the supply of the goods. So if the ship sinks or if the goods are destroyed even on the board of the ship, then, and this condition is mentioned in the contract, so the contract would, this valid contract would become void. So these are the four conditions, that is voidable contract, then supervening impossibility, subsequent illegality, or in case of a contingent contract where the contract performance is contingent on the happening or non-happening of a future uncertain event. Under these four conditions, a valid contract would become void. Now, a void contract cannot be void from the very beginning. There may happen some event that may make that valid contract void. But then there can be a void agreement. Void agreement where those necessary essential elements of the contract, they are not present. If those elements of the contract which we had discussed in the previous slide, if they are not present in a contract, that in that particular agreement, then that agreement would be void from the very beginning. That is void ab initio, and that would be a void agreement. So there has, from the very beginning, there can be a void agreement which cannot translate into a void into a contract, but from the very beginning there cannot be a void contract. There has to be some valid contract, and on the happening of a particular event or some circumstances that may arise, valid contract becomes void. Now, so if I ask you what is the difference between a void agreement and a void contract, can anybody answer to this? What is the difference between a void agreement?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, a void contract is enforceable by law, whereas an agreement is both parties mutually accepting certain circumstances.
Void contract is not enforceable under law. Is it Arham? Arham Tareen? Yes.
Yes, sir.
So void contract is not enforceable. Since it's void, it cannot be enforced. It's just a valid contract that can be enforced in the court of law. A void contract cannot be enforced in the same way. A void agreement cannot be enforced in the court of law. But the difference, okay, I'll tell you the difference. A void agreement is void from the very beginning, right? This is the difference. A void agreement is void from the very beginning, but a void contract is valid at the beginning, but there arises some event or eventuality or certain circumstances that would make a valid contract void. So at the beginning, a void contract is always valid, but later on it becomes void, although a void agreement is from the very beginning, it's void and it cannot become a contract. So this is the difference between the two, that is void agreement and void contract. Now we'll take up unenforceable contract. Unenforceable contract is where the contract may lack something, some technical, if there is a technical fault. For example, if the contract requires to be in writing, if a particular, although by an conduct of the two parties, the contract can be made, by spoken words even the contract can be made, but there are certain contracts which need to be in writing. Like, for example, bills of exchange or promissory notes. Now, these cannot be by spoken words. They have to be in writing. Similarly, we have the sale deed of land or buildings. Again, they have to be in writing, and in such cases, they have to be registered even in the court. So proper registration would only be made if the adequate number or value of the stamps, they are affixed on the papers. So if there is inadequacy of the stamps, this particular contract would be unenforceable. So because of certain technical defects, like if the contract is not in writing, or the law requires that that particular contract should be registered, or stamps should be affixed on the papers, requisite value of stamps. If any of these technical defects are there, the contract, although would not be unlawful, it would be lawful contract, but it would be unenforceable. And it would not be even void, but it would be unenforceable. It cannot be enforced unless that particular defect is removed. So for that particular time being, it would be unenforceable. Once the requisite number of stamps they are put or registration is done, then that it would be enforceable. Yes.
Sir, if a contract is made with a person and he turns out to be a minor, so is it void or unenforceable?
It would be void. It would be void because a contract with a minor is always void. Unless there are special conditions. Like, for example, if the contract is made under the guardianship of some person, of some major or guardian, then that contract would be enforceable. Otherwise, if the minor imposes that he's a major and later on it's discovered that he's a minor, the contract would become void.
Okay, sir.
Then we have illegal or unlawful contract. Now this illegal or unlawful contract is not illegal from the very beginning. It is valid at the beginning, but there may happen some event which may make that contract unlawful. There can be an unlawful agreement. For example, giving the premises by the house owner or the property owner for some illegal purposes, like, for example, gambling or some other illegal purposes. that would be unlawful, and that agreement would be unlawful. But from the very start, there cannot be an unlawful contract, because that unlawful agreement cannot become a contract. It cannot be enforced. So later on, suppose it's discovered that the party or the tenant is now utilizing that premises for some immoral, say, use, or for some illegal some use, then that particular contract would become unlawful. So it would become void. Likewise, if as I gave you the example in case of void contract, that the government comes up with a rule and may declare the subject matter of the contract, that means the object of the contract, as illegal to be traded, in that case as well, that lawful contract would become unlawful. Then we have, from the point of view of the mode of creation, first is the express contract. Express contract means where it is expressed by both the parties to the contract by means of words, whether spoken or written. That means the price is negotiated, all the necessary conditions or they are mentioned, and how delivery would be made. How, say, for example, in the case of sale of goods, where the delivery would be made, at what time and on what date the delivery would be made. All such conditions, they are made clear through, whether through writing or by spoken words. So such type of contracts would be express contracts. And implied contracts are where it is implied by the conduct of the parties that the contract would be formed. Like previously I gave you the example of the transport bus. If you go and occupy the seat in a transport bus, you are bound to pay the price of the ticket once the bus starts. So as soon as the bus starts, you enter into a contract only by your conduct. Or if you say get off from a train on a station, and the porter in uniform, he picks up your luggage and starts taking your luggage outside the railway station, you allow him, you do not inhibit him, you allow him to take that luggage outside. So in that case, this contract would be formed by the conduct of both the parties. And then whatever price he asks after taking you out of the station or taking your luggage out of the station, you'll have to pay that price. Now, if in case there's a negotiation between the two parties, that means between the porter and the traveler on the charges that he would have to be paid, on that, I mean, if there's negotiation by spoken words, then that would be an express contract. Then last is from the point of view of the extent of execution of the contract. That means whether the contract, whether the obligations have been performed or not. So from the point of view of the extent of execution of the contract. Just a minute. So first is the executed contract. Now this executed contract is where both the parties, they perform their respective obligations. That means they make their performances. For example, in the buying and selling of the goods, the buyer pays the price for the goods, and the seller delivers the goods. And particularly all those goods on which, I mean, the specifications of which had been agreed by both the parties. So all the clauses in the contract, they were agreed between the two parties, and both the parties, they complied with those all those terms and conditions under the contract. So nothing remains to be done. That would be called as executed contract. That means both the parties, they perform their obligations and nothing remains to be done. It would be executed contract. Now, a contract can also be executed contract if just one of the parties makes the performance fully. For example, if it's agreed between the two parties that on, say, today it's 4th of August. Okay, so on 10th of August, for example, the buyer will pay the price of the goods, and the seller would deliver the goods on 15th of August. So 10th of August, the buyer will pay the price of the goods, and on 15th of August, the seller would deliver the goods. Now, in case the buyer pays the price on 10th of the August, but the seller does not supply the goods on 15th of the August, is yet to supply the goods. In that case as well, the contract would be called as executed contract. Although one of the parties has fully performed the obligations and the other party is yet to perform the obligations. Sometimes it happens that the goods may not arrive at the warehouse of the seller on time, and he would not be able to deliver the goods on time. So the seller would ask for, say, additional time from the buyer, that he would require 1 more week to deliver the goods. In that case as well, the contract would be executed contract, although just one of the parties has fully performed the obligations. So this type of contract, this type of executed contract is called as unilateral contract, where only one of the parties has performed. Likewise, suppose if the goods are to be sold on credit and the seller delivers the goods, the buyer takes over the goods, takes over the title of the goods and possession of the goods, but has to pay the price later on, for example, after 1 month, because the goods are sold on credit. So in that case, again, it would be an executed contract where only one part or the parties, that is seller, has delivered the goods to the buyer and the buyer is yet to pay the price. Suppose if the buyer does not pay the price at all, then the seller would go to the court of law and would file a case for the non-performance or breach of contract by the buyer, that the buyer has not paid the price, and would also claim damages because the money or he has not received the money in time, and so he'll file the case for breach of contract and also file a suit for claiming damages as well. It would also be called as unilateral contract, although it would be executed contract on the part of just one party. One party has performed fully the contract. It would be an executed contract, but it would be a unilateral contract. Second is the executory contract. Now, in executory contract, both the parties, they have to perform their full obligations. So in such contracts, if both the parties, they have to fully perform their obligations, then that would be called as executory contract. Now, in such cases, like for example, if the buyer has paid an advance sum to the seller, but is yet to pay the full amount, and the seller has to deliver the goods, yet to deliver the goods. So in such cases, obligations remain and performances remain outstanding from both the parties. And this type of contract would be an executory contract. It is also called as bilateral contracts because both the parties, they have to perform their obligations. Even if one party has paid part of the sum or part of the price, still it would be called as executory contract because that party has not paid the full price of the goods. So this would be a bilateral contract. Now we are left with just 3 minutes, and that's sufficient for the discussion. Anything that you want to discuss relating to the above points, please feel free.
Sir, force major clause will be included in which of the contracts from the point of view of enforceability?
Enforceability, forced contract.
Force major. That is a clause that recently was
Forced.
in
Okay.
COVID-19.
That is basically, that's a clause in any contract. It's better to have it, that clause of force major clause, because we never know that there may arise certain situations where which would be out of the, say, control of both the parties. So such force major clauses, they are usually a clause which is put on the end of that document, that in case of say some accident, if the goods are destroyed, then the seller would not have the responsibility, or there may be fire in the, say, factory of the seller, and the seller may not be able to produce alternative goods within time. So such type of clauses where basically such events which are out of the control of both the parties, sometimes if they happen, then perhaps that party is not responsible, at least for that event, or for non-delivery, or for non-performance. So force major clauses, they basically, they may be acts of God. For example, an earthquake or flooding, which may damage the goods. So any event, and that particular event in the force major clause, that event has to be mentioned in the force major clause, that all what type of events they are to be covered. Likewise, there may be events like strikes by the workers. There may be a strike by the transport companies, or any other eventuality. All such events, they have to. If a particular event is not mentioned under the force major clause, then the party would be responsible for breach of obligation. Otherwise, if that event is mentioned in that force major clause, then that party would not be responsible